Welcome, 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 guys, to another episode of TransParents. Tonight we have a special guest with us. My name is Amber. I go with she, her pronouns. You can find me on TikTok at Moonchild77. Jenny,
I am
I'll
Jenny.
let
My
her
pronouns
introduce
also.
herself.
I'm attempting to. Oh, sorry, I overtalk everybody. Sorry. Anyway, I'm Jenny. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me on TikTok at translovingmama. And we have a guest who needs to introduce
Yes,
himself.
Cody, let you introduce yourself to the audience. I'm going to read a little blurb about who you are, but I'll let everybody
Yes,
hear it
I'm
from you
Cody.
first.
He, him pronouns. Put them in the, there we go. And I'm the father of a trans child. I'm father of three children. My oldest identifies as non-binary, and my middle child identifies as trans. And then my youngest, he's just
Question mark.
We'll find out.
yeah,
Remain stay tuned. Stay tuned.
cishet. He's him. They're all them, and that to me, that's really the point. Is they're all just themselves.
Right,
All of the different words and labels, those are really for other people to try and, get a better understanding of who they are and how to interact with them. But, as far as I've always been concerned, they're just them. They're just
right,
themselves.
right. Jeffrey is here this evening. Thank you,
Hi,
Jeffrey, for joining
Jeffrey.
us.
Hey, Justin.
He is one of our constants. And so, just for everybody at home, let me do a little brief introduction of Cody. So, Cody is a passionate advocate for the rights of gender diverse children and a dedicated community leader. He's currently running for City Council in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where he aims to bring positive change and support for all families. Cody is also the co host of Talking Transparency podcast, where he discusses life, news, and parenting of a parent of a trans child, like us, which we thought was really cool when we found out. I was like, oh my gosh, he's got a podcast just like us. So that was cool. In addition to his political and podcasting endeavors, Cody is a vocal parent and community member at school board meetings, known for his powerful speeches against discriminatory policies. On TikTok, you can find him at Busy Dad, where he passionately speaks out for the rights of gender diverse children and shares his journey as a supportive father. Cody's dedication to advocacy and his unwavering support for his child and other gender diverse children make him an inspiring figure in our community. We are honored to have him with us tonight. And tonight, we had kind of been talking about we want to do a Father's Day episode with Papa Bears. And I had surgery in late May. And so we already knew we weren't going to be able to do it. And we were going to try and record it beforehand, but we just couldn't line everything up to record it. So this is kind of a belated, but I had run across the short film documentary on Netflix called The Dads. And it's with Dennis Shepard. And we had just, I talked to Jenny and I said, we should kind of, play it because it's short. It's not even, I think it's like 9.5 minutes by the time, because the credits are like a minute and a half. So it's only like 9.5 minutes. But I thought it was a very powerful documentary. It kind of talked about a lot of the perspectives of fathers, which is not a perspective that she and I have been able to share on the show. And yeah, it was just an honor. And then to find out all the extra work that you did, not just the fact that you were a dad, but the fact of everything else that you were doing. Jenny and I were just so excited last Sunday, just kind of ping ponging back and forth, like, oh, guess what? Guess what? So yeah, it was great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I mean, that you talk about all the extra work or whatever. To me, that is just a dad.
Right? I wish we had more fathers who felt that way, though. Jenny and I were part of a podcast
about it, because I think
more vocal.
There are more parents than we realize, but I think that, I mean, and I understand it took me about a year to get to where I was like, no, I'm just going to be super vocal because, why not YOLO, right? As the children say.
I mean,
well, I think I was protected with mine because of where I was at, but also because honestly, I didn't think it was my right to talk about it. And Jenny and I are both of our sons, trans sons, are adults. And so mine is 26. Yours is still 18?
No, he's
19 now. Okay, 19. So between the two of them, like we have a different perspective because they're adult men at this point, right? And they both came out later. Mine especially came out later in life. So there wasn't necessarily that pushback from his dad because his dad wasn't in his life anymore. But the podcast that we were part of last year, it was very apparent by one of the parents who spoke a lot on Facebook. She had mentioned that here she was part of a group of 10,000 moms, but to that 10,000 mom group, you might find two supportive dads that were willing to be vocal, that were willing to like sit down and like they were uncomfortable even talking about it. And that honestly, more of her parents that were uncomfortable that she dealt with coaching were actually men. So again, this is an entirely different subject that Jenny and I can't speak to. So we're delighted that you came on. And I guess, what were your initial thoughts when your child did come out to you?
I mean, there's all sort of the all of the external stuff, just you do think about what that's going to change and what they have to deal with in their world. I mean, the first thing me and my wife did, other than reassure her that you know it's okay to be her, and that we love her, and that all of that is just fine, to please continue to be her as
Right,
strongly as she can. The next thing we did was look at the schools at where we were living in more rural Virginia at the time,
mm,
um, and right in the shadow of Liberty University out there. And we looked at the schools in the area and immediately knew we didn't want our child to have to go to those schools. And so
right,
then we looked for, you know, the most friendly communities in Virginia, because we didn't really want to get too far away. We lived in Portland, Oregon back before COVID.
oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, that's its own story. Uh,
That's cross country. Like I saw Virginia Beach, and I was like, oh, okay, he's not far from me. And
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, and I have family in Virginia, and I lived in Virginia
okay,
as a child before, but I was a military brat, so I lived in 12 different states and Japan and all over. But we didn't want to move out of Virginia because our oldest and our grandchildren were here too.
right,
And so we wanted to be close enough to see them on a somewhat regular basis.
right,
And so we looked for the best places, in Virginia, and it was kind of Richmond, Fairfax, Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach area. And so I started looking for jobs, and I found one here, and we moved here, and honestly, it's become home. That's the thing. Um, for people that know what home feels like, for people that know what it feels like to look for a home, then they know what it feels like when you finally find home. And that's what coming to Virginia Beach has been for our family. Now, everything hasn't been perfect. Youngkin, our governor here, has passed policies attacking trans children. There's plenty of support for those policies, and plenty of
right,
school boards throughout Virginia, including here in Virginia Beach. Um, and so, um, that was one of my big motivations to speak. And I did talk to my daughter before, becoming a TikTok influencer, if you will. Um, but was just, we'd found home. We weren't running away from any of this anymore. And we weren't also just going to sit there, be quiet, and take it.
right,
And so, I started posting my speeches on TikTok, just because, one of those reasons you don't see a lot of fathers,
no,
especially, or even as many parents as you'd like in general, standing up and speaking, and all of those things that you'd like to see. And so, my biggest reason for posting on TikTok was maybe people didn't know what to say.
right. And I think Jenny had started, she had TikTok. I wasn't a TikToker at all. And then she eventually was kind of like, LinkedIn, YouTube, we're not reaching enough people. And Jenny had purposely reached out to trans creators on TikTok to support them so that they felt like they were supported. And so she was like, I've got this group, this network. We should be putting that there because part of our initiative was so that kids didn't feel alone and that we could reach more of them because younger generations are on TikTok versus other platforms like where we're at, LinkedIn. But professionally, like reaching out with, I had, when I first started my audio room on LinkedIn, I had worked with a lot of people like who were social workers who worked in either juvenile retention services or courts. And so they had contact with these populations, but they didn't necessarily know how to support them. And here I was at least offering, a reference from a healthcare point of view that honestly sees all the gaps because that was half the thing that I realized during the pandemic. Once my child came out was, okay, everything you learned in nursing school in two different schools, you never heard anything about how to support the bodily autonomy of the LGBTQ community. None whatsoever. And we're taught how to respect everybody else. And it's differentiated whether you're talking about peds, whether you're talking about NICU, whether you're talking about med surge, the elderly, like there's specifics for all of these groups. And when I looked at the healthcare system, there wasn't anything carved out for this group. They're having to fight to even be seen. And now we're having legislation that's cutting off their right to access. Those of them that can get access, which is a whole nother
Yeah, it's a whole
problem.
nother story.
It's a whole nother story.
The thought that it's just like there on the shelf and anybody could just grab it at any time.
Right, right. That's a problem that's ongoing. But I think one of the other things that I noticed too about being able to go to TikTok was it wasn't just that we were communicating with kids. It was other trans people, it was other people within the LGBT community, but it was also people who were allies who wanted to support, and they may not know how to support. Parents who honestly aren't comfortable, like in my audio rooms. There were times where I had people come to my rooms for 6 months before they felt comfortable to come on stage and talk about something they were concerned about. Whereas, or to even communicate that they had a child that identified within this community that I didn't even know about. I just thought they were coming to the room, honestly, because they were a therapist and they were supporting their clients, not because of a personal relationship that they had. And then when you look at TikTok, Jenny and I both realized that you had parents that could scroll looking for information without other people necessarily knowing when they had questions. And I'm sure for you, do you have fathers that reach out to you?
um, I have not as much, really. There are networks of dads that exist on TikTok, and exist on Facebook. Dragon Dads is a great group on Facebook. And so, and maybe it's just that men thing that they don't reach out quite as much. And so, I do get more moms reaching out for help, asking different things, different places where they can find resources and support and all of that.
Right.
Um, and then, like I said, I do have, dads that I network with and we talk, sometimes, and we share videos. And, we're friends, followers,
Right.
mutuals. That's the word, mutuals on TikTok.
I
Um,
think you kind of have to be. I think, in
mhm.
fact, they kind of talk about that within the film, that network, having other supportive parents who understand what they're going through, because it is a I don't want to say that I'm scared all the time for my kid. I never want to own that. But at the same time, when I look at the onslaught of the rhetoric that's out there, the truth is that there are a lot more people who are against my kid outspokenly, outspokenly than there are for my kid, right? And so that does give me pause. I am in a rural area that's right outside of a big metro area that he's safe in, but in our community, he's not. So, like, we are completely red. There is no LGBTQ. There is no Pride Month here. You can't get status here. Um, it's a hard place to try and wedge a difference, right? And that's why I looked at policy, because policy, well, that influences a lot more and it affects a lot more people in a broader stroke. Like, that's the problem right now with a lot of the anti-trans legislation that's going on. And so I think Jenny and I, again, wanted to kind of speak to that. Uh, I guess, Jenny, do you have anything else you want to say before we intro or go into the video?
No, I'm just happy y'all are here, babies. Yes. Hello.
Yeah, she's very chill. She's my chill. She keeps me relaxed.
All
Um,
inside, I am a seething ball of anxiety and rage, but exterior, I'm good to go.
you look cool as a cucumber, girl. Okay, so let me introduce this video, guys. We're gonna watch and discuss a short documentary, The Dads, and this is available on Netflix. I put I think there's a trailer for it that is in the comments section on LinkedIn. This 10-minute film, directed by Lucina Fisher, follows six fathers, including Dennis Shepard, as they embark on a weekend fishing trip in rural Oklahoma. These fathers, who come from diverse backgrounds, share their heartfelt stories of unconditional love for their trans and LGBT children. Dennis Shepard is the father of Matthew Shepard, a young man whose tragic death in 1998 brought national attention to the issue of hate crimes against the LGBTQ community. Matthew's murder led to the establishment of the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, which expanded federal hate crime legislation to include crimes motivated by a victim's actual perceived gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. Jenny and I discussed this in an earlier episode this year. As we watch The Dads, let's reflect on the themes of fatherhood, acceptance, and the evolving landscape of masculinity in America. We'll also explore how these stories resonate with Cody's advocacy after the break or after the film.